Shadow Rider, but with very different compositions.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. Also, the skip loom should be like, I know it's like facing James, so like cheer him on, but like face us. I don't know, but no. Looking at these two teams, same restricted, but great call out on the different way that these two are built. So looking at the one end, we got the tailwind to try and make sure it's fast. We do have follow me redirection with this cornerstone ogre pawn as well as this Amoonguss, but then James has his own different tools. Clefairy is one that we saw really, really early on with the Calyrex Shadow Rider to redirect hits and stuff, but Mienshao also a really, really cool Pokemon in the way that, well, I don't have to redirect hits at all if I can just stop it in its tracks with Wide Guard. So it'd be fun to see how these two face up against each other.
They both have interesting ways to protect their own Calyrex Shadow Rider from Astral Barrages as well. You called out the Wide Guard on Mienshao, but James Evans on your screen now is running the Terra Normal. So if he does opt to Terastallize his Calyrex, it will be immune to Astral Barrage, and he has two ways to redirect a possible Psychic in the form of that Ogerpon and Amoonguss. So some cool ways to protect this nasty plot Calyrex. If you get a nasty plot off and you get a KO with Astral Barrage, you're now at +3 special attack, and I can't think of many things that can stomach a +3 Astral Barrage very well.
Not much in this format, that is 100% for sure. And then we do get to see other powerful picks here too. This Tornadus, you have the speed with the Tailwind, you have the Rain Dance, and you have an Urshifu Rapid Strike that can really capitalize off of that. The Mystic Water and the Surging Strikes, you're talking about Pokemon that are not going to appreciate hits or can't really stand up to things. Well, not too much minus like resisted hits can really stand up against that. So if you're looking at maybe any worry about the Calyrex, you do have aggression with the team in other sort of ways. And I do love that there is two different redirectors on this team.
I love the Rain Dance call out too, because not only does it boost the power of that Surging Strikes and Aqua Jet from the Urshifu Rapid Strike, but it's a really nice way to mess with some of these Koraidon teams that are popping up. Like, of course, the team that Wolf just won EUIC with, but Koraidon was already kind of a threat in its own right. And if you're able to shut off the sun with that Rain Dance, turn off the Orichalcum Pulse, turn off Photosynthesis from a lot of Pokemon that rely on sun to get that boost, you can disrupt your opponent's teams in a lot of ways. Obviously, no Koraidon in this game, though, as it is this Calyrex Shadow Rider mirror, and James BAEK has opted for Clefairy, Rillaboom, Mienshao, which is a really cool utility Pokemon, Urshifu Rapid Strike, and Incineroar as partners.
And calling out things that may seem the same but are a little different, if we do see something like the Urshifu come to this match, it is going to be a Choice Scarf for BAEK side as opposed to the Mystic Water. So the damage might be a little bit lessened, but you do have that natural speed, since we're not really seeing a way to set up a speed option for James. Instead, you have that redirection with this Clefairy, you have the Fake Out with its Incineroar and the Mienshao, and then of course Mienshao looking to maybe shut things down with something like this Wide Guard. Taunt on the Pokemon is also really cool if you're looking at ways to maybe limit what this Tornadus is able to do in terms of that setup, or just shutting off anything else, make sure things that don't get too out of control. So I'm curious then how James is going to be going up against this speed, and if this Mienshao is something that we do see, considering it looks like such a great answer into something, well, like the Calyrex.
Yeah. The taunt on Mienshao is really cool. Oftentimes players run Feint in that slot, which allows it to break Wide Guards and allow your own Calyrex to attack with Astral Barrage through a possible Wide Guard. Taunt kind of does the same thing. If you taunt something, you can't use Wide Guard on the following turns, but also offers a lot of utility into Pokemon like Ogerpon or Amoonguss that want to be redirecting. I also think the Icy Wind on Clefairy is really cool. That's not something we see too often, and it gives James BAEK a little bit of speed control on a team, like you said, Sierra, that doesn't have a Tailwind. That's kind of the only speed control option.
Well, it's time to head into game one here of round 4. Figure out what these trainers are kind of leaning towards when we're looking at two restricteds, but two very different teams. Rillaboom and Calyrex here for James BAEK, going up against the Urshifu and the Amoonguss for James Evans.
Bit of a setup lead here for James BAEK. I'm looking at James BAEK's team. It's much more focused around this Calyrex Shadow Rider setting up and being like the main source of damage, whereas on James Evans' team, you have the Mystic Water and Urshifu. You have Pokemon like the Ogerpon that can do a lot of damage on its own, especially with that Chien Pao. So not surprising to see BAEK wanting to start off with this Calyrex, hopefully get some nasty plots going, and then force James Evans to respond before this Calyrex just gets too powerful.
and a little peek of what Evans has in the back there. We got to see the Tornadoes and the Calyrex Shadow Rider. So if you can utilize this Urshifu early game to great effect, kind of soften things up a little bit, be able to deal with the restricted on the other end, that would be certainly nice. You could then try and just set up some speed, a strong Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back, and take the game from there. But early terrestrialization in the match into the grass terrestrialization. Of course, when you are staring down a Rillaboom on the other end, that threatens you a lot with a super effective hit. You don't want any part of that. No attack into the Urshifu, though. Instead, making sure that this Amoonguss cannot do anything. For Calyrex, that is a nasty plot. +2 to the special attack. So next turn, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage, but you're going to be receiving a lot on this turn as well. No rain to help boost the damage, but still, this is not going to be taking another hit.
It might be able to take an Aqua Jet, which could be really important here, especially thanks to this grassy terrain recovery. Now, obviously, one more Surging Strikes will finish the job, but since Calyrex is going to be faster than this Urshifu and Amoonguss, and has this +2 special attack with the spell tag, it's going to start dealing a ton of damage. I do love that grass terrestrialization, though. If Urshifu does, have to take something like a Wood Hammer or a Grassy Glide on this turn, it would have taken a lot more because it was the water type, which is weak to grass. But thanks to this grass Terra, the Psychic from Calyrex would have been neutral as well. Because it terrestrialized, I don't think there was any way Urshifu gets knocked out on this turn, which means it is still around to threaten something like the Surging Strikes. A possible Aqua Jet, which I think would be very close.
That'll be the big one, especially too when you are looking at an Urshifu that has the defensive terrestrialization as opposed to the offensive. With the Mystic Water that boosts the attack just a little bit, but how much? You have to go for it, but it's not there. Calyrex is holding on, and +2 Astral Barrage is coming down on Evans. Both these Pokemon, a lot of damage and just straight up KO'd. James Evans already down 2, and he'll have to see the final 2 in the back.
Well, I said that if you get a nasty plot in 1 KO, you're at +3, but what happens if you get a nasty plot in 2 KOs? That's +4. +4 Calyrex Shadow Rider is very, very terrifying. And of course, James does have 2 Pokemon remaining, and the Aqua Jet took Calyrex down pretty low. One more hit from anything should be able to knock it out, but is it too late? Does James Evans have enough in the tank to KO 4 Pokemon?
I mean, you do have the perfect 2 Pokemon if you're looking at what's there. We obviously do not know what's in the back for BAEK as of this moment, but the Calyrex Shadow Rider on BAEK's end has taken a lot of damage, and when you are looking at the speed, there is the way for Evan to be setting that up to make sure that you are outspeeding, and I don't think that there is a response to just an attempt at a hit at this turn. The Rillaboom on the other end, especially being the Assault Vest, if it is sticking around, it will take the hit quite well, and you don't have those boosts that BAEK has, but you can at least get rid of this +4 restricted, especially with the terrestrialization being the fairy type. There's not a way out of just, getting hit.
Yeah, I mean, this Astral Barrage could be a really big deal here. What James has to decide is if he wants to go for a Tailwind, thinking that the Calyrex on James BAEK's side stays in and tries to attack, or do you possibly go for something like a Bleak Wind Storm, try to KO this Rillaboom before it can attack?
Well, we're going to see terrestrialization onto the opposing end here, and since we've seen one from Evans, it's that Rillaboom into the fire type. So it's great call out on the Bleak Wind Storm, but if that was an attempt from Evans, it's now not going to be doing that super effective damage. So great way to be covering your options. Instead, that's the speed coming out from Evans. So no way to really match that immediately from BAEK. You just have to be taking these hits. These 2 Pokemon should be more than capable though, so not too much damage. You can at least go for the Bleak Wind and stuff next turn, but Wood Hammer into the Calyrex, already down to just a sliver of health.
Really, really smart play by BAEK there. The idea to maybe try and win a speed tie and call James going for a Bleak Wind Storm there and get an Astral Barrage off before you get knocked out is tempting, but by terrestrializing that Rillaboom to a fire type and swapping in Clefairy for the Friend Guard, you're pretty much guaranteeing that this Rillaboom gets an attack off this turn. It's going to survive Astral Barrage like we saw. It's going to survive a Bleak Wind Storm because it's not weak anymore, and you get this huge Wood Hammer off, and now Grassy Glide should be able to finish off this Calyrex on James Evans' side of the field and put James BAEK at a huge lead.
And this Bleak Wind Storm, especially with the terrestrialization, is just not the damage that you need. And,
oh no.
That's going to be a Rillaboom that's just gaining that health back. So all of that headway that you're able to do with these Pokemon is not really there. The Calyrex, you get a little bit of recovery from the grassy terrain, but this Grassy Glide from the other end is just offering too much. Yeah, go for the double and try and make something happen, but I just don't see why you don't keep going for these
Right.
grassy glides and the heal pulses. There's not really the damage here, and you don't even get the double
Yeah.
protect in the end.
Let's say you get the double in Grassy Glide, that somehow manages to not KO it next turn. Like, this Heal Pulse Clefairy is doing so much work that I don't know that this Rillaboom ever gets knocked out, even if you have infinite protects, right? It's just not taking any damage thanks to Heal Pulse and the Friend Guard, and the dodging also helps too, but it doesn't really matter in this case. Just a really well-played game by James Beck there, knowing that especially after that couple first turns where you got that huge Astral Barrage off, you didn't really need the Calyrex to finish off the game. You see Evan's last two Pokemon, and you know that this Fire-type Rillaboom could do the job all on its own.
And this is an opportunity then to talk about where we see this game 2 going as the match is canceled. James Beck to take the first. With these two restricted, James Beck instantly out of control with this Calyrex Shadow Rider. We saw only one person lead that restricted. Evans deciding to opt for the option with the Calyrex in the back and not working out. Do you want to lead it this time? That gets then a little bit weird because you can get pressured from the opposing end. Do you bring then your speed? Because this Urshifu did not do it enough to be kicking off the match.
You have to wonder if James Evans possibly knows his Calyrex is slower. This isn't info that we have, but there's a chance that James Evans knows maybe my Calyrex is slower than James Beck's. If I have them both on the field, I basically have to Terastallize in order to do anything with my Calyrex. Maybe you don't want to give up that resource so early on, but I think you have to adjust for Beck leading that Calyrex again, going straight for a nasty plot. You don't really have a great way of preventing that or punishing it if Beck leads the Rillaboom or even the Clefairy and the Calyrex again. They provide so much support to that Calyrex Shadow Rider with that nasty plot between the Friend Guard, the Heal Pulse, the Fake Out, the Grassy Terrain recovery, that it's going to be difficult, I think, for James Evans to not give up too much ground while that Calyrex gets set up.
Well, isn't there just this world of possibility of bringing the Tornadus and this Calyrex Shadow Rider and leading that? You can't get faked out due to the ghost typing and then the Tornadus with this Covert Cloak. So you can either go for the Tailwind and just straight up attack, or you can go for that double with the Bleak Wind and the Astral Barrage. Would that be the damage and like maybe the move necessary?
It could be, but then James Beck maybe even comes in and says, I'm going to lead Mienshao instead. It also has Fake Out, which is all he really needed on that first turn, but also has Wide Guard, which would prevent something like that from happening. I don't believe we saw Beck's fourth Pokemon either. We just saw the Rillaboom, Clefairy, and Calyrex. So it's something that James Evans kind of has to take into consideration. I can adjust pretty hard for that lead, but if Beck sees it coming, you put even further on the back foot.
Especially being up a game, if James X wants to be switching up the lead to try and catch Evans off guard here, I mean, you got a game advantage, you know? You would rather just close the set out in 2, you know? You don't want to be playing too risky there, but you can also just completely catch him off guard. So I'm intrigued to see if we're going to see a run back of that same lead that was just so successful here in that very first game, or try and punish this potential swap up from Evans. But it's time to start getting into game 2 here, see these leads, see where these trainers' minds are at. No switch coming out from Beck. On the opposing end, a little bit of one. Right away, we get to see the Urshifu and the Tornadus. So this is going to be a little bit more interesting with the possibility of Rain Dance.
Yep.
That would in fact get the KO on this Calyrex.
I do like this adjustment a lot. With that Covert Cloak, Tornadus will have the option to get something like a Tailwind or a Rain Dance up, guaranteed on this turn. The Urshifu, again, if it wants to go for that Grass Terastallization, will guarantee that it doesn't get knocked out on this turn. But because the Tornadus is holding the Covert Cloak, if Beck goes for a Fake Out, it almost certainly is into that Urshifu slot. So maybe you don't even want to, give him the chance to get some big damage into that slot right off the bat. Either swap it out, go for it detects, and then kind of let your Tornadus do its thing for a turn. And then the Rain Boost with the Surging Strikes, maybe enough to KO the Calyrex straight up with the Surging Strikes, but if not, certainly an Aqua Jet range this time.
The weird thing here is you don't want to disrespect the Calyrex on the opposing end with maybe going for a detect when, hey, well, we're seeing right here, the Rillaboom's not going for Fake Out. It is in fact just swapping out. So if Clefairy comes out onto the field, that does bring around the Friend Guard as well and making sure there is redirection going on forward. As Terastallization is now spent, this was to make sure that you are good past the Rillaboom, but now it just means that, hey, we get the Grass type out and Evans no longer has access to Terastallization down the road. That could be important. Rain Dance. Now all the damage from any Surging Strikes is going to do a lot more. Of course, you have to take a hit first.
Oh.
Neither Pokemon appreciates that, but they will take it okay.
Oh.
Now to see how much this will do with the Friend Guard actually putting in a lot of work, and it looks like this isn't going to get the KO here.
It's not, just barely misses it thanks to that Friend Guard. Of course, the rain does boost the power of Surging Strikes, but Clefairy is there to save the day, and Calyrex hangs on. Now you have the option to redirect an Aqua Jet from this Urshifu, but if you still have the speed advantage with your Calyrex Shadow Rider. If the Tornadus has the option to go for a spread Bleakwind Storm, but if you're Bleakwind Storming, you're going to be slower than this Calyrex because you have not set up Tailwind. So even though the Calyrex took a bunch of damage here, this Clefairy is standing strong and allowing this Calyrex to not really be scared anymore.
And with the amount of damage that you took, you have to make that choice of which one. And since you need the speed to even make it past the turn, the Tailwind makes a lot of sense. So one opportunity to make sure that this Urshifu can do some meaningful damage before it's on its way out. Already looking at how much the first one does. Actually, this is getting close. That second one did a lot of damage. Clefairy will go down. So you're not getting rid of the restricted quite yet, but you are taking down one of the partner Pokemon to try and make sure that this restricted doesn't get out of control, because surely this is about to be an Astro Barrage, and we saw the damage last time. We're about to claim 2 KOs, and that's about to be 2 Grim Neigh boosts.
Another 2 Grim Neigh boosts, but importantly, no Nasty Plot this time. Clefairy is down, so no more Friend Guard, and the Calyrex Shadow Rider on James' Beck's end, is pretty low on HP. James Evans surely has his own Shadow Rider in the back, alongside one more Pokemon to weather the rest of this storm. It is the Amoonguss this time, so I kind of like this. You've got the Amoonguss, Calyrex, you have the Tailwind boost now for a couple more turns, which will allow you to attack before James Beck's Pokemon. And even though you did lose 2 Pokemon, I think getting rid of that Clefairy is huge. It really did look like the Surging Strikes might be a roll for the 1-hit KO. 3-hit KO, the Surging Strikes knock out there, but importantly it goes down, which gets the Pokemon count down and removes the Friend Guard.
Rillaboom comes back out onto the field for Beck. Again, Assault Vest means that you're not taking nearly as much damage, and you do have the option of Fake Out into the Amoonguss, or to just deal some Grassy Glide damage into the Calyrex onto the opposing end. So Evans no longer has Terastallization on the table, and you kind of have to figure out, like, at this point, After Barrage probably just safe, get some damage, but he's already down 2 Pokemon.
Yeah.
So is this enough in the tank to try and make it through the rest of Beck's team, including a 4th unknown quantity?
This is also where James Beck's Calyrex not being Terra Normal is important. It is Terra Fairy, which will still be neutral to Ghost, so you have no way of, not making this Astral Barrage KO. So if James Evans does opt to go straight for this Astral Barrage, you either have to protect and stall out a turn, let your Calyrex go down, or let something in the back take this full-powered Astral Barrage.
And it's just to protect from Beck for this Calyrex Shadow Rider, so no damage done. It's going to be surviving past this turn. And if you're eyeing up this Rillaboom with how much damage it did with the Woodhammer last time around, I think we know it's about to be on the horizon for Evans, and it doesn't look good. That's not the damage that you need into this Rillaboom. And now here we go. Woodhammer, so much, and down to a Sliver. That's going to be an easy Grassy Glide to pick it up next turn. Sludge Bomb will pick up at least the KO, so you did just enough with that recoil.
Yeah.
Be a bit of a saving grace.
I wonder if that recoil is the difference maker. That's a lot of damage dealt by Woodhammer, which means in return a lot of damage dealt back with that recoil. And Sludge Bomb there being the attack of choice is huge for the Amoonguss because it allowed it to pick up that KO, but Mienshao comes in here, and you know what will prevent an Astral Barrage is Wide Guard. So you have to wonder, if you go straight for the Wide Guard, do you try to Psychic that Calyrex? And if you do, is that even enough?
Yeah, we don't have those boosts on Evans' end to really make that difference. And I feel like that's always the mind game. That's the tricky part, because if you go for it and you miss out, and then this Mienshao just gets free into the Amoonguss, you're done. But if it Wide Guards, you're cooked on the spot. Like that is not the mind game that I appreciate when I see these Calyrex Shadow Riders.
The nice part too for James Evans is that if he is able to knock out this Calyrex Shadow Rider, the Mienshao does not have an attack that can damage the Shadow Rider on his own side of the field. Wide Guard does come through, so it's going to be a matter of Psychic versus Astral Barrage.
All right, time to see if there is going to be enough damage output into the opposing end. Not very effective, and it holds on with just a little bit. Now, Psychic from the opposing end, from back into this Amoonguss that had all of those boosts. So 1 KO, easy, and now Evans down to 1 final Pokemon.
Well, going for the Psychic there, does James Evans still have a way to win this? Is it going to come down to whichever is faster, I think? Because there's one more turn of Tailwind, and I believe that maybe I'm not seeing something here. Because I think Evans maybe has a way to win this if his Calyrex is faster than James Beck's. But maybe he just knows. Maybe that comes down to the friendship info sharing, right? Maybe he knows James Beck's is trained to be as fast as possible, and his own is not. So unfortunately, that means the end of the undefeated run for James Evans, the defending champion.
Almost